All right. Hello, everyone. I decided I would hop on and try and do a quick video for all of you. So we'll see how this works. Sorry, the setup is nothing spectacular, but my mom is going to be at my house in about 10 minutes, and so I'm just jumping in and doing a little chat for you. So what I want to talk about today are 3 really fun and easy activities that I do with my high school students as first day activities, just to kind of get them into the act of creating and making. Because a lot of times when they come into the classroom, high school students are really intimidated about making art, and it's important just to go ahead and get them started. I also use it a way to really get them to understand that I'm very interested in the process of them creating, so going through the creative process and not solely focused on the end product. So the first activity that I do, and I mainly do this in my 3D sculpture class, but it would definitely work in any art class, and this one always works, and it's really simple. So one, I had a ton of really crappy drawing paper, like drawing paper that whomever taught before me ordered tons and tons of, but you would never use because when you try to erase it, it starts to fall apart, and just absolutely terrible for pretty much anything. So use cheap paper. You could use scrap paper. This should be a really inexpensive activity. So I break them into groups of no more than 4 students. If there's more than 4 students, there always seems to be someone that's not really doing anything. You can choose the numbers, but so I give them normally 10 to 15 pieces of paper. The size of it is 11 by 14. And then I normally give them the same, I kind of vary back and forth, 10 to 15 pieces of masking tape. Those are all their supplies. They're also allowed to use scissors if they want to cut things. But other than that, no more supplies. So they have one class period. So our class periods are 80 minutes long, so you might want to tweak it a little bit depending on the length of your class period. And they're told their goal is to create a freestanding sculpture. It needs to be as tall as they possibly can get it. It should have as much negative space as they can create, and they're also thinking about it as a sculpture in the round. Now, for many of my students, those are new words. They don't know what sculpture in the round is. While they totally should know what negative space is, they don't remember. But I don't actually define those words. It's the first day of class, and I just want them to really start to explore. And again, I'm trying to set up that I want them to use the tools that are around them. So I do allow them to use their phone or a computer, that they're allowed to look up those words, look up the definitions, but they have to find the answers on their own. So then they spend class time building these giant tower constructions. We take about the last 10 minutes to do a quick look at everybody's construction, and students talk about how they think they're showing a sculpture in the round, and they talk about their use of negative space. And that really sets up as a great lead-in to the next class where we can dive deeper into those terms. But everyone always has so much fun doing this, so they get to know each other a little bit more and learn a couple new terms. So overall, it's just a really fun way to work. So a second activity that I do that also has always worked wonderfully, and I've done it in all of my classes. So I've done it in photography classes, I've done it in jewelry making classes, because again, it's really more about getting them problem solving, thinking, and working together. So this is a paper airplane challenge. I give them 2 pieces of paper again, so all of this is really minimal supplies. And their challenge is to build the biggest paper airplane possible and the smallest paper airplane possible. And let me back up. Sometimes I give them more than 2 pieces of paper. It kind of depends on the group or what I want. But sometimes I'll give them more, so if they mess up, they can try another one. You can kind of feel that out. So, and so it's the biggest that can fly the farthest and the smallest that can fly the farthest. So they work in their groups. This one I normally stick to 2 or 3 people. And they work on making their planes, and then they obviously have to keep on testing their planes to see how well it's flying, and then come back and make adjustments. So one, they love doing it because you're never allowed to throw paper airplanes in school. So it's kind of really sets up that this is going to be a little bit of a different environment than some of your other classes. But it also really encourages them to make mistakes and to come back and correct them. And then at the end of the class, we go out in the hallway and everybody tests their airplanes to see whose can fly the farthest. So that's just another really fun activity. And then the third one, I haven't done this one quite as many times. I just started doing it maybe 2 years ago, but they really like it. So I put them into pairs, and one of the students gets blindfolded. The other student can see. The student that can see, I give them an abstract painting, normally one that's not too incredibly complicated. And their job is, the student that can see is giving instructions to the student that cannot see. Now they can help them find where the paint is, but that's about it. The student that cannot see is really following directions that the other one is giving them. So they might say, you really need to feel up to the top right corner of the page and then paint a rectangle there that is about the length of your index finger. So they have to give really, really specific instructions. A couple reasons why I love this activity. So right away, it gets the students working with each other. The student that's blindfolded really, really has to practice listening. It also keeps them from being afraid of putting marks on the paper because it's not their fault if they mess up. The student that's giving directions is having to look really, really closely at the formal qualities of the piece and give super specific directions. So it's great practice for them in actually talking about the art, which I also love. And they just have fun doing it. A lot of times then we'll actually keep those, and that paper can be used kind of like a painted paper activity. It can be collaged into something, or it'll turn into a later project. You could also always this could work in an art history class too, as a lead in into talking about and looking at abstract art, or a lead in as to how to actually talk about and look at art. So those are 3 activities that I really love doing with all of my classes. This is 9th through 12th grade students. They always work, and the students always enjoy doing them. I also love them because the supplies are super, super minimal, and I find that whenever you really want to encourage students to experiment, it's nice if the cost is super, super low or next to nothing, because then you don't feel bad if it just really is kind of a mess. It also helps the students when they realize they know they're not working with these great precious materials. They're definitely more willing to mess up. So I hope that this is helpful and that you can go ahead and try them in your classroom this year.